Male hair loss affects 40% of all men by the age of 35, but can anything be done to prevent it?
Well, Dr Ranj is with us now, and this is something that you don't mind us saying it at all. No. You've had your own personal struggle with.
Yeah, so I've been gradually thinning since my early 20s, and that's a normal part of life for all men.
Yeah.
This is what happens. But then it got to my sort of late 30s, it really started to bug me. I decided to do something about it. I went to see a specialist. It was actually part of an ITV show that we were doing at the time. I got an assessment done, and I thought, OK, do you know what? I'm going to do something about it. And I tried various different things, and then eventually I settled on a treatment that I'm happy with. But there are lots and lots of things out there. Like you said, it affects loads of men. A lot of us don't even talk about it.
So we'll come to those treatments in a moment, but what causes it? What is it? Male pattern baldness?
So the biggest cause of baldness in men is something called male pattern baldness, and that happens because men produce testosterone. That testosterone gets metabolised to something called DHT. That binds to follicles of hair in your scalp, and it's only mainly these follicles in this area here that have that receptor. When it binds to them, it causes them to shrink, and then the hair falls out.
How annoying.
These ones get spared because they don't have the receptor, and these ones tend to go. In women, it's a totally different process altogether. But that male pattern baldness is 95% of hair loss in men. There are other reasons that people lose hair: medical conditions, pregnancy, stress, trauma, nutritional deficiencies, certain conditions like thyroid disease, that kind of stuff. You know, there could be lots of different
Which is why it's important to go to a specialist. They can rule out anything else.
Which is why I think it's important to get a medical opinion before you embark on a significant treatment.
All right, so let's start off first of all with shampoos then, because that seems relatively easy.
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. So the very sort of at the cheaper end or cheapest end of the market is probably things like shampoos are available over the counter, really easy to obtain. They make a huge range of claims, and there's a huge range of products. There's various different things like caffeine, peptides, ginseng. The reality is the scientific evidence for these is really, really poor. Sure, try them out, see how they go for you. I tried a brand out, it made my scalp really, really dry, and I think made the problem worse.
Oh, no.
Which is why I think it is very much a trial and error, and just be careful that there isn't a huge amount of evidence on them.
OK.
Next up, the other things you could pop on your hair are things called serums. They're slightly more expensive than the shampoos. Some of these coat the hair follicles, so therefore make the hair appear thicker.
Right.
Which obviously will have an effect. Some of these claims...
That's a word that's used a lot, isn't it? Appear. You'll appear. It'll appear thicker, you'll appear younger.
And that's it. And it's all in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? And some of these claim to stimulate hair growth. Again, the evidence for that isn't that great. Whilst they may thicken your hair and make it look fuller, which some people are happy doing that, it may not necessarily stimulate regrowth, which some other people will want.
All right. So what about supplements?
So, supplements, we've got some over here. So, supplements are a huge industry. As we know, the vitamin market is massive. These are marketed as these are food supplements. These aren't technically medication.
Tip those up so you
but they will contain things like vitamins and minerals, things like vitamin B6, B7, B12, iron, selenium, zinc. All of these have been implicated in hair loss. Now, the problem with these is that they will help if you're deficient in those vitamins, I mean, if you're not getting it through your diet or if you've got a very restrictive diet. If you're not, they're unlikely to make a massive difference. And again, the evidence for them is conflicting, actually. When you look at the big studies that look at different types of vitamins and minerals, it's a bit of the debate is still out on them, I think.
So far, this is not very successful,
So far, not great.
Far, none of this is going to work.
I know.
Disguise sprays.
Well, so we talked about serums and things coating the hair and making it look fuller. There are disguise sprays, waxes and fibres that pretty much do the same thing. They coat the hair and make it look thicker, which is great, and they can also disguise any sort of balder patches you might have. So, for example, this is one brand that's by a hairdresser called Jamie Stevens, who's been doing lots of work in this. So a disguise spray, I've actually tried these products. So as I'm gonna put it on my hand and just show you. It goes on.
Oh, wow.
And what
so it colours your scalp?
It can, but it does coat the hair a bit as well. So for some people, that might be exactly what they want.
When you spray that, you need to make sure it's on the right bit, because that's just going to cover your whole face.
Whilst this stuff is slightly more expensive than the others, it's easily available. It does take practice and it can get messy. And with some products, you might want to be careful in the rain and things like that.
Wow, so is that liable to start running down your face?
Depends on the product. These ones don't run down your face, but just be careful. Obviously, try the different ones.
Because some others might.
I want to show you these fibres, though. These are pretty cool, because these are fibres that stick to your hair. And all you do, if I get another patch of my arm... you haven't got very much hair, unfortunately.
Okay. Oh, I see, it's got to stick to your hair.
So all it does, if you puff them on, you might see, look at that, they go on.
Ah, okay.
But again, takes
Coating
practice.
the hair.
Oh, I
Could get
see.
messy.
Slowly, slowly.
Just
that-
really
If you were-
slowly.
if you
That's
had-
very clever, actually.
If you had a bald patch, though,
Yes.
there's not much up there to stick to.
Well, you could try it, and it does sometimes give the appearance of natural hair. But again, it's practice. It could get messy. It may not work in certain weather conditions, and you have to reapply these. They're not a permanent solution.
OK, so let's go to medication now
Yes.
then. Because...
So we're going to talk about two main ones. The first one, which is a lot more commonly known, is Minoxidil, or Rogaine is one of the brand names. This is a medication that was discovered incidentally. You apply it to the scalp and it stimulates hair regrowth, and it reduces hair loss as well. It can be used by men and women, which is the big thing about it.
Does it
Okay.
work?
Now, there is evidence that it does work. It isn't as effective as some of the other medication. It takes about a year to kick in. You might have to use it for up to a year to start to see any noticeable effect.
Right.
You're going to have to do it every day. It can cause scalp irritation. It can get messy. The application process can be messy as well. So just bear that in mind. But a lot of people use it and they might see
And
some
it's like a
effect.
mousse?
It can be a mousse, it can be an ointment.
And you
can
put
be a
it
spray.
on-
You put it on and you have to rub it in.
After, like, washing your hair, it doesn't leave your hair with a funny texture.
It kind of, according to this, you put it on, massage it twice a day, 12-hour interval. I think
So it's a
you can do it
commitment.
at any time, really.
Right, OK.
But it is a bit of a commitment.
What about things you take?
So there is now on the market a medication that you can take. Finasteride, one of the brand names for it is Propecia. It is available off prescription, and it is a once-a-day pill that costs around about £1 a day. Now, this is one of the most effective medical treatments that we have for male pattern baldness. It can start to kick in anywhere between 3 to 6 months. I take this myself, and I actually found it to be useful. It can stimulate regrowth, and it helps you hold on to what you have. So you'd have to start it relatively early. There's no point using it when your hair is gone, because it's not going to bring it back.
Right.
The only problem with this is it is a male-only treatment because it's a hormone-based testosterone blocker. So it's a hormone-based treatment, so women shouldn't use it. You should be careful if your partner is trying to get pregnant as well. And the other thing to bear in mind is always speak to a professional before you take this, because whilst it is effective, a small percentage of men have significant side effects. Sometimes those side effects persist after stopping the medication, and that could affect your mood, it can have an effect on your mental health, and it can even affect your libido. And these are really, really important things
Paul
to consider.
Innes was taking Propecia. He came on our show in 2014 and claimed the drug that made him impotent, depressed and suicidal.
Exactly, which it's when you look at the studies, it's very difficult to differentiate whether it was the actual medication that caused that or whether failure of the medication actually drove the people to feel those feelings. But I think we have to take it seriously, and you have to do your research before considering something
Just
like
very
this.
quickly, because and it's sort of sitting here on the table, you could go to that.
Yes, so we now have hair systems. Hair systems are Toupee 2.0, the new version of the toupee, and essentially what they are is very similar to a toupee, but they're created bespoke for you, so you have to have them fitted by a professional. They're glued onto your scalp,
We've got
and
a
then they
before
are
and
cut
after here.
into shape. They are
Oh, wow.
extremely
What?
realistic. They last for up to 3 months, so you don't have to have it reapplied for 3 months, but then you'd have to go back and have it redone. But they can look really, really great. In fact,
Wow.
lots
I mean,
of my
I'm sort of
friends
looking
have
at
them.
this going, oh, hang
Lots
on a
of my
minute. You
friends
look at
have
that and
them.
go, actually, that looks pretty good.
This is pre-cut though, just bear that in mind.
Right,
So it's
okay.
got to be fitted by a professional, and it can be, several £100s. But as you can see, it's a good option.
And none of the side
Thank you, Ranj.
effects.
Yeah.